Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'm going to be covering the weather for May 8th of 2023. So what we're currently looking at is a slight risk setup, which includes some of the leftovers from yesterday's convection, as well as a pretty large marginal threat area for tons of for much of the United States, really. And a very small marginal threat for, or not small, it's pretty decently sized, but it's for pretty much where we saw the severe weather yesterday, and its remnants are now down here somewhere in a line. But then we also have another slight risk area for southern Texas, southern central Texas, which was not originally there when I was making my written forecast. So I'm kind of left in the dust about that a little bit, but I'll try to cover it the best I can. So for our hazards today, if we take a look at the tornado threat that has been issued, we have a pretty large, very small but large area for a 2% risk for the Ohio Valley, as well as a very tiny 2% risk for that marginal threat that we had there, as well as the potential for some damaging wind gusts, as well as the potential for large hail, as well as a hatch significant threat for large hail as well. Taking a look at our pivotal weather models here, you can see that there is a large line of severe weather down through Illinois and Missouri, as well as leftover severe weather through southern Kentucky and through much of Tennessee, continuing eastward, as well as with this continuing eastward as well. This is potentially what is fueling the 5% or 2% chance for tornadoes that has been issued by the SPC. But I'll get into the specifics of that in a moment. But all of what you're seeing here with this large line here and these scattered thunderstorms, scattered organized thunderstorms, is the leftovers of what was happening yesterday. All these are the organized systems that were down through Illinois, producing tornadoes, have now organized into one big QLCS, as well as a group of scattered thunderstorms that did develop independently down through western Tennessee, that could potentially bring the potential for some small to large hail associated with these two systems, as well as maybe the potential for some damaging winds, as well as maybe the potential for some tornadoes, embedded tornadoes, specifically associated with this system in particular. These storms, however, are not really expected to last very long, as they are expected to really fizzle out. Like the further east they go, further decreasing their potential for any severe possibilities, such as hail or damaging winds. But there could still be the possibility for some damaging winds in pockets like these, and these of the very leftovers. All these systems would likely be at the end of their lives and starting to fall apart, finally falling apart by the late afternoon of today. And then you can see another system of storms developing by the late afternoon of today, down through Missouri all the way east into Indiana. Based on what I've seen so far, this could potentially also have another tornado potential attached to it. And I'll also get into the specifics of as that in a moment, but this could also bring the potential of damaging winds, large hail, and maybe the potential for tornadoes included with these systems as it continues eastward down through Tennessee and into Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. The tornado potential will likely not continue into Mississippi or Alabama or Georgia, anywhere past the Tennessee border. If we take a look at the humidity in the atmosphere, you can see that there is large amounts of humidity, a very large humidity plume for much of the area, with dew points as far north as Missouri and Illinois, through Kentucky and Tennessee, as well as the possibility for some dew points in the upper 60s and 70s as far north as central Kansas and in this area, and the southern Missouri border, and possibly even further north. In the wake of the previous systems, however, it's likely not really going to affect the severe potential for the new storms that are going to develop. As you see, it has basically no effect. If anything, it is more ready for severe weather, as the humidity is absolutely booming here, with dew points in the lower 70s through much of the area, as far north as Illinois and Indiana, through Kentucky and Tennessee. A very humid, very hot and humid plume throughout most of this area. I live in Tennessee, and it's really hot and humid outside as of right now. Um, and with dew points as far north as Illinois and Indiana, so this atmosphere has what looks like more than enough humidity for a large severe potential. But then if we continue further, you can see it really uses all that humidity. You see, by the time storms begin to develop, it just sucks all that or all that 70 dew points right in, and really uses all that humidity, everything that it can get. It just uses it. So the atmosphere, it looks like it has more than enough fuel to support the very strong thunderstorms and the potential for tornadoes, as well as very large hail. Let's actually take a step backwards a little bit and talk about what's actually going to be triggering these severe thunderstorms throughout much of that area that we were looking at, with that very hot and humid plume. Because it didn't look like there was much of a dry line that develops, or a cold front that moves through the area to force those severe thunderstorms to develop in the really ready environment, more than ready environment for severe weather development. We do have the jet stream on the 500 millibars throughout the mid-level and upper-level winds that is still just moving through the area, and absolutely going to town throughout much of the area that we saw severe weather from yesterday, throughout Iowa and Nebraska, as it continues to move through and continue eastward, down throughout the area that we're expecting severe weather, with wind speeds in the 50s and 40 knots throughout the area. It's the main trigger for what's going to be forcing the severe weather to develop throughout that area, is the strong mid-level winds throughout the 50s and 40s, and it could also possibly affect the presence of deep level shear, and the potential for tornadoes throughout that area as well. Let's then take a look at our low level trough here. The shortwave chop that moved through the area throughout Iowa and Nebraska the day earlier and triggered severe weather there. It's continuing eastward throughout the Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana area in the western Ohio Valley. Really, it's again going to be one of the main triggers for the severe weather development down through that area here. You can still see it just goes to town in that area, and again, it could the shortwave trough here could also allow for the potential for a deep level shear to develop, in the increased possibility of potential tornado genesis throughout the northern Ohio Valley, or not northern Ohio Valley, but western Ohio Valley, continuing southwest as the QLCS of the storm systems continue southwestward or eastward. Now let's get back into the deep nitty gritty of the severe weather potential that's expected for tomorrow, or for the late afternoon of today and tomorrow. We can see that there is tons of instability throughout the atmosphere in much of that area. Very very large amounts of instability, with CAPE levels in the 3,000s to 4,000s through Illinois and Missouri, as far north as those states. And it looks like that the storms that were passing through the area, you can kind of see them here a little bit, look like they're mostly outflow driven. They've barely affected the atmosphere in their wake, and if anything, helped enhance the potential for severe weather, as there is a lot more instability throughout the area. You can see it just goes to town there is absolutely tons of instability, as well as the humidity. So everything looks like it is in place for severe weather development. What we just need is wind shear for tornadic development. Looking at the lapse rates here, you can see that there are pretty decent to relatively strong lapse rates that are moving through the area to really mix up a lot of that instability and humidity, and allow for the potential of a really well mixed layer and get everything mixed up and ready for severe weather development throughout Missouri and Illinois and continue south westward. So that's really what I just needed to look at for lapse rates. So the strong lapse rates allowing for the well mixed layer and allowing for the cake to just be mixed together and just furthermore allow for the severe weather potential instead of having all the ingredients laid out. It's being mixed up into one big severe weather cake. Taking a look at the surface-based wind shear here, it does look like that when the severe weather does develop throughout Missouri and Illinois, down through Indiana, it does look like there is severe or strong, relatively weaker, on the weaker side, but still pretty moderate and more marginal wind shear throughout much of the area along the frontal boundary that could allow for the potential for for tornado genesis throughout much of the boundary as it continues southward. Furthermore, allowing for the potential of tornadoes. But again, it does look like it is fairly on the weaker side. So it looks like, so far what I've seen, it looks like tornadoes are likely to be more brief, uh, very brief, and not really long lasting or long tracking, and likely to just, again, be very brief. Taking a look at the surface-based instability to actually allow for a strong updraft and allow for the potential for tornadoes, include with all the parameters in place, as well with strong instability and wind shear. We still need surface instability, and it does look like we get exactly that. Along that boundary there. We do have some fairly widespread 3 kilometer instability throughout much of the frontal boundary area throughout Tennessee, with it looks like more moderate, but in some areas, especially throughout areas in this area and around the eastern Tennessee area, it looks like we do get some fairly stronger and surface instability that could allow for the potential for some strong updrafts to develop from the surface and allow for tornado genesis once again, but as well as the strong, apart from tornadoes, we do have other hazards that are also included. With the high instability to moderate instability as it continues, the potential for large hail, as well as damaging winds along that boundary. So that's mainly what we're looking at. To tie it all together, let's look at the significant tornado parameter. It's not really something, again, that I've said this every video so far. It's not something that you want to look at to be sure of if there's going to be tornadoes produced. It's just something to tie it all together. It takes the wind shear and the instability and everything around it to tie together what it thinks is going to be the best possible chance for a tornado. But it's also not something that you really want to rely on, as you want to look at all the factors included. But let's just look at it for fun to get an idea. You can see that we do have some fairly weaker end, but still possible tornadic genesis throughout the significant tornado parameter in very small values, but definitely still significant enough for to allow for a more for the potential of a brief tornado. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator. I've worked hard on getting them all set up, and I'm currently working on trying to get the Discord more put together and more appealing to hopefully allow for growth. But I've put together all of this, and I put tons of effort into it, so it would mean a lot if you guys could check that out. and follow along with Project Gladiator, and hopefully, or not hopefully, because I will most likely not be able to come back tomorrow with another forecast, as I will have plans tomorrow, which is why I mostly covered a lot of this evening's weather, as well as into tomorrow. So I likely won't have a forecast for tomorrow, but you can follow along with updates or any quick change of plans like this in the Discord server for Project Gladiator if you guys want to join that. And hopefully, I will see you guys Wednesday with another forecast.